Recording video entrances are really stressful sometimes because that is the one part that I will edit just because I want them to make sense. But I've tried to do an intro and I keep messing up. So here we go. I'm Sean. Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to show you how I created this patch using my single needle Brother VE2200, also known as the Dreammaker XC. It is a discontinued model, but Brother has many newer machines that work just like this and better. But this one still works, so you know they say if it ain't broke, don't fix it or replace it. So anyways, let's get started. Okay, so for this project, I'm going to be using some denim fabric from some jeans. I'm upcycling for this project. These are from some old jeans. I just cut a square out, and on the back I will apply Heat and Bond Light, and this is just so that when I do the trim for the trimming part of the applique step, I don't have a bunch of frayed denim everywhere. And then the final decals, I'm using Caesar glitter vinyl. Oh my goodness, Caesar glitter vinyl, and I just cut it with my Silhouette, the Cameo 4 Plus, and so just cut those out. And I am going to be using the 4x4 hoop for the Brother, the Innovis VE2200 single needle. I am going to be using the Rich Word embroidery thread, color 33. This is the red. And I'm going to be hooping some water soluble stabilizer. This is the stabilizer that looks like, you know, regular stabilizer. Vilene is one brand, but there are a few different brands out there. So I am going to hoop everything, and I am not going to hoop the fabric. I'm going to float the fabric because there is an applique step and I'm going to need to trim. So I'm going to hoop the stabilizer, not everything, the stabilizer. And I will set that to the side. I'm going to take the denim over to my iron and apply the Heat and Bond Light. I'm just going to follow the directions, let it cool, and then I'll head to the next step. Okay, so I have the Heat and Bond Light adhered to the back of the denim. I'm going to pull it away, and you can see it's got a shininess to it. Now, initially when I was thinking this through, I was thinking I needed to leave the paper on for when I go to press the decals, because this is heat transfer. I'm going to have to press these, right? But what I'll do is when I do the final adhesive for the backing, the patch adhesive that I like to use, I will use that first, leave that backing on, and then apply the HTV to the front. But I'll show you in just a moment. So instead of using the spray adhesive, the temporary spray, I am just gonna float this on top once I have it on the machine, and it should stitch okay because it's literally just gonna do a initial placement is what it's supposed to do first, so you can see where you are going to put the fabric. Then it's going to do a tack down so that you could tack down the fabric and take it off and then trim it, and then it'll do the final stitch for it. Okay, so we'll go over to the machine and we'll do the next steps. Okay, so I have the design pulled up on the machine now, and the good thing about the single needles, or the nice thing, you don't have to worry about programming a stop, where on the multi needles you have to program a stop so that you could do the applique steps. So this has 3 different colors. So that first color is your tack down, then the second color, the first color is your placement to show you where you're going to be putting the fabric at, then the second one is your tack down to tack it down, and then the final is your satin stitch. And so because each one has a different designated color, the machine's automatically going to stop, so you don't have to worry about programming a stop. Alrighty, so I have my already hooped water soluble stabilizer. I have my thread already loaded, and I use the Thread Nanny. I know some people don't feel like they need it. I like it, so I use it. And I have the bobbin with the bobbin thread in the bobbin area. So I use the Brother bobbins now for this here embroidery machine. At one time I was using whatever bobbins I found, but I decided to get the Brother Bobbins because after trying and, you know, adjusting tensions and things, I realized that they work better for this machine. Go figure. So I'm going to put the hoop onto the machine. I'm going to lock it in place here. And I am going to lower the presser foot, and I'm going to stitch the first step, which is that placement stitch, so that I'll know where I need to put the fabric at, okay? And it says check upper thread. That's the error message that I'm getting, is to check and rethread the upper thread. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. Something must be off. I'm gonna just clip from here, and I'm gonna pull it down this way because, you know, I don't want to pull it back against the tension discs. And I'm going to go through and rethread. And let's see how that works. Okay. And then I'm going to use the button over here. There's a button to auto thread it. Okay, and I'm going to pull that through. And just in case you didn't see it, this button right here is the auto threader button. And so now I've got the needle rethreaded, and I'm going to lower the presser foot, and I am going to try to resume this. And I won't worry about that gap in between. That gap right there, I won't worry about that, because after all, this is just the placement stitch. It's not truly supporting the design. Okay, so now the placement line is stitched in, and for some reason it didn't trim back there, so I'm just going to trim it, and this is how it looks. So now I'm going to just put it back in the machine. Let's pull that around, and I'm going to get my fabric that has the heat and bond light on the back of it. I'm going to place it over that area. And remember, I said I'm not going to use any spray adhesive. I'm just going to let it float. But what I will do is, I've got some of these little dials that I got from the craft store a while ago, and I'll use this to make sure that nothing gets shifted too badly. And now we'll run the tack down stitch. Okay, I didn't even need my dial. Everything just stayed in place okay. So now the tack down is done, and I am not sure why my machine is not trimming. I may have to rethread that bobbin just to make sure everything is in place correctly. But the tack down is there. I will go and I will trim as close as possible without cutting those lines. Okay, so I am going to I'm going to try to go in from the narrowest point and just trim as close as I can. Just down and around. And I'm doing it this way because I do understand that everyone does not have a cutting machine to pre-cut their applique shapes, and so I'm going to do it this way just to show you that it can be done. I cut into the thread a little bit, but hopefully I didn't cut too far into that thread. Ooh, I am steadily cutting that red thread. I hope it stays in place. So this is what it's looking like now. I will clip a little bit more off of there and off of there, just for the sake of making sure that I don't have any denim hanging outside of the applique, that final satin stitch. Okay, and so I think that'll work. We're gonna find out. Okay, so now I'm going to take this back to the machine and we will do the final stitch, which is the satin stitch. Alrighty, so I've got the hoop with the heart back on the machine. I am going to lower the presser foot and we're going to hit start. So this part of it, I think it's about a 5-minute stitch out. I'm going to hit stop for just a moment so that I could pull that thread out of the path. And get that clipped. And what? Oh, okay. I pressed the presser foot down button, not realizing the foot was already down, so that's why I got an alert and the button was red, and so now it's down and I'm just going to hit start. I hope that made sense to you. I thought that the presser foot was up and I hit the button thinking I needed to put it down, but it was already down, so we're back on track now. And so the satin stitch, it does look like it is covering the threads pretty well. And I'm sorry I can't get the camera closer up in there. But it's just gonna do the satin stitch and we'll move on to the next step when it's finished. And now it's filling it in with the nice heavy satin stitch. Okay, so now it's filling it in with a nice heavier satin stitch. And all of the denim is being captured, and I could tell that it's all being covered up by the satin stitch because, let me hit pause for a moment, because when it did the initial foundation for the satin stitch, I was watching to make sure that all the way around it covered all of the denim all the way around. Okay, so now I'll just let it finish. Okay, so it is finished stitching, and then this is how it's looking. So the next thing that I am going to do is I'm going to take this off of the hoop. I'm going to clean up the water soluble stabilizer off of it, and then we'll put the heat applied adhesive, the stuff that really sticks, to the back of it. But I'm going to leave the paper in place so that I can then go and put the heat transfer vinyl on it, on the front of it. I know it's double adhesive to the back because we already have the heat and bond light, but for iron-on purposes, the heat and bond light really is not heavy enough, or strong enough, I should say, for applying and, you know, trusting that it'll hold up. Okay, so that's why I'm doing this the heat applied adhesive as well. So let's go to the next step and I'll see you at the table. Alrighty, so I'm gonna unhoop and I am going to just trim the bulk of this water soluble stabilizer away. And let's see here. And now we've got water soluble stabilizer on the back as well. And we've got some stray threads going on. And remember earlier when I was talking about the bobbin, well, I showed you the bobbin wasn't cutting or it wasn't trimming with the stitches in between. So I did insert the bobbin and just ran the thread back through, and it cut this last step just fine as far as the thread cuts. So I'm just going to trim this away as much as possible anyhow. And then once you get the bulk of the water soluble stabilizer off, you've got two choices. You could use a Q-tip and dab around all the way around the edges to get it out, or just rinse and let the whole thing dry before you go to the next step. So I'm going to get this cleaned up, and I think I will just dab around the edges with a Q-tip because it's not a whole lot. And then we will put the heat applied backing on. Okay, here I go, talking and rambling. Okay, so I think that is probably almost about as much as I'm going to get off with the scissors. And then I'm just going to go through and dab the edges with a Q-tip real quick, and then let it dry, because it will still be a little damp, but then it won't be as much to have to dry versus submersing it in water. And then we'll put the heat applied adhesive on the back, and then the HTV layers to the front. And I hope this, yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if that heart was gonna fit or not, but it will just fit. But we'll go ahead to the next step. Okay, so the heart is now dry, and we got all of the water soluble stabilizer off. I will singe these little threads here on the end just to make sure that they're out of the way. Didn't mean to start a fire, but definitely be careful if you're going to use a lighter to get rid of any excess threads. And so now I am going to use the heat applied adhesive that I get from Twill USA. I will leave a link in the description for the exact kind in case you're wondering, but I'm just gonna do a basic measurement. I guess that's a basic measurement. I'm gonna cut out enough just to fit and make sure I'm not, shortchanging myself as far as the adhesive for the back. So that's plenty. I'm going to go over to the iron. I'm going to place a piece of butcher paper down so that I could just turn this upside down onto the butcher paper and then press, and then I'll let it cool and peel it back. But you'll see those processes in just a moment. Okay, so we are actually over at my heat press, but we're not turning the heat press on just to put adhesive onto this one patch, okay? It's too hot for all that. But I'm gonna lay a piece of butcher paper down, and I get this in a big old roll from Sam's Club, and I actually got a roll about 5 years ago, and I'm still using it, and I don't need any anytime soon. But I'm going to place the butcher paper down. I'm going to take my patch, and this is the part that the HTV is going to be applied to, the right side. I'm going to right side down, I'm going to take my heat applied adhesive, and the shiny part is the adhesive part. So I'm going to lay it on top of that heart. And then I'm just going to get my iron, and it's a dry iron. There's no steam coming out. And I'm just going to press down on here so that that adhesive will get good and melted down, okay? And I put this butcher block paper down, of course, you know, to protect anything up under there. I don't want adhesive to be stuck to everything. So I just give it a good press to make sure it's hot and adhered. And you can actually see that it's sticking down there, okay? So before I do anything, I do let it cool a little bit because this stuff does get hot. Of course, it's being ironed. And then after it's cool enough, I will peel this back away from the paper, and then I trim around, okay? So I'm gonna trim around this, and I'm gonna leave the paper on the back because I want to put my HTV down before I take that paper off. And that way I won't have to worry about this sticking to anything, and then the fact that, you know, I need to actually heat both sides. And I'm doing this part before the HTV, remember, because I had the heat and bond light on the back of the patch to begin with. And so I'm just going to trim around. And make sure that's that. Okay, and so this area right here, you saw where some of the adhesive was pulled away. I do want to do a check just to make sure that I do still have adhesive all over the back of that patch. And I do, as evidenced by all that good shininess that's going over the threads as well. Because remember, the heat and bond light did not cover the threads. So I know that I do have adhesive on all of that, but I'm just gonna slide that back over there. And matter of fact, I'm gonna press it down just to keep it in place. And now, just in case there's any residue from the adhesive on there, I'm gonna fold this over. And then I am going to turn this right side up this time, because now we're going to put the HTV layers on top of this patch. Okay, and so I'm going to put the heart down first. And I just want to make sure that I could get the heart to where it's not covering up the satin stitches. I don't think I did the best trim on this. Let's see here. You want to try to get that as balanced as possible so that it looks even. And that doesn't look even. Let's see here. Every time I pick it up, it kind of slides a little bit. So let's see here. And move that over. Nope, that's not even either. I think I should have cut the heart a little bit smaller. So I think I'm going to have to push it to where the point comes as far down towards the stitch as possible without it covering the stitch. Okay. Yeah, I think that will work. It leaves a lot of emptiness up at the top, but we'll live with that or deal with it. It depends. So I'm going to hold that in place. Now the HTV does come on a sticky carrier sheet, so it sticks to your fabric to some degree, but I'm now going to press it. So some people will tell you to press with a Teflon sheet over it, and you press however you feel fit to press. I'm just trying to make sure I don't get the stitches too much, because the stitches will get pressed and that polyester is going to melt just a little bit, as far as not melt like melt all over the place, but it's going to melt as far as pressing it. And I like for it to look a little lifted still, but I might not be able to avoid that. So this is hot, so you may want to wait and cool it. But that's the first layer. And so now I need to put the lettering in, which will be this silver. Okay. And that looks lined up pretty well. And so now I'm going to press this. And the good thing about the glitter HTV, you can, within reason, iron over it. I mean, I don't have a problem ironing over it, but I do want to make sure I press and get it in real good. And when I say ironing over it, I mean without the carrier sheet. I do iron over HTV glitter. Now, if it's the other kinds, you definitely don't want to iron it, because you're going to scorch it up and tear it up. So this is how the patch is looking so far. So now I'm having some random thoughts, like maybe I'll do the outlines in rhinestones or something. But I like the denim. The point of doing a denim patch is for the denim to show. So I think I'm just going to leave the denim there. So there you have it. When you're ready to actually press it onto something, you're just going to peel that paper off the back. You are going to press it down and hold it in place with a dry iron. Follow the instructions for the heat applied adhesive that you're going to be using, in case you're using something different. But I always like to do a tack down around the edges with a matching thread to the border, just to make sure that if you're putting it on something that's going to be washed, you want to make sure that it's not going to fall off, because the heat applied adhesive, it's only going to last so long as an iron on, regardless of what brand you're using. So I always like to stitch it down, unless there's some brand out there I haven't tried yet, but I've tried a lot of them. So anyways, this is it, and we are finished. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and until next time, you all take care of yourselves. Bye. No, you can see how strong my prescriptions are. Okay, maybe this angle. No, that's not gonna. Hey everybody, I'm Shawn and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I created this patch using my single needle brother Innovis.